Right. So we know a lot about photography now. We know all of the fundamentals like the exposure triangle. We know about gear and settings. We know about focus and light and visual patterns and style. We know what genres like landscape, street photography, and portraiture are all about. We've done a bunch of different assignments and we've thought a lot about photography. We've gotten a lot of inspiration. We've gone out to take specific photographs. We've tried specific techniques. And most importantly, we've experimented a lot. By now, you would have undoubtedly thought about the post processing portion of photography, commonly known as editing. And there's a very specific reason as to why I'm only bringing this up now at the tail end of the course. And the reason for that is because editing is polish. All of the skills that I've taught you up till this point will get you 80% of the way to taking amazing photographs. Editing is the other 20%. And you'll find that over the years and years of getting better and better, editing will become less and less important as your technical skills become better and better. And you'll start to realize that getting your skills and your techniques right in the field when you're shooting is significantly more important than editing or anything else. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that new photographers make, especially in their first years, is thinking that they can edit their way out of a bad image. And this is just not so. You know, there's a very, excuse me, vulgar Australian saying, which is, you can't polish a turd. And if we were to translate that into something a little bit more decent, it means that you can't edit a bad photo and make it good. But you can take a good photo and edit it to be great. The actual act of taking the photo is the most important part of photography. Without that, you don't have a good foundation for your image and you really don't have something good to work with. Ideally, you want to make sure that your starting point is as good as it can be, as good as it can be from, straight out of the camera. From there, then editing it and refining it will take you the rest of the way. Now, something that I want to clear up at this point in time is that in the post-image taking process, there is actually a period of organization and review, and then there's a period of actually manipulating and editing the image and shaping it into its final form. And while both of these are important, I would argue that the period of review is the more important part of the post-processing journey, because after you've shot your images, you've imported them, you've organized them, and then when you go and review them, it's in this reflection and review and looking back on your efforts that allows you to see your mistakes. It allows you to see what you could have done better next time and then carry that insight into your next shoot. It allows you to think of new perspectives, new angles, new opportunities in hindsight for you to try better next time. Now, while the actual editing portion of the image is fun, don't get me wrong, I love doing it. When you're new to photography, you'll find the fastest growth in making sure that you review your images thoroughly after every single time you go out to shoot. What you're looking for is whether your images are sharp or if they weren't. You're looking for whether your images have enough subject isolation or thinking about what you could do better next time in that respect. Or if your subjects have enough pop or enough flair to them. You're looking for whether your images tell a story or if they have a message or convey an emotion. You're looking for whether you've added enough visual patterns to make the composition more interesting or interesting enough or even easy to understand. You're looking for whether or not the focal length that you were using or the lens choice that you made was the right one for the right scenario at the right time. All of those things. It is in the cycle of shooting and reviewing where you make the most gains at the beginning of your journey. In the literal millions of deliberate shots that I've taken over my career, I only have a few thousand images fully edited, and less than 100 of those make my portfolio. Most of my portfolio images have been edited over and over and over again because my tastes in editing change so much over the years. But the photo itself is usually so good that it stands the test of time. It is the actual capture itself that is strong, that allows me to keep editing and changing the visual aesthetic of the image. But without that, I wouldn't be able to do so. Now, over your career, these images become your babies. They become the work that you are known for, right? Not because you edited them well with nice colors and dodging and burning and all that kind of stuff, but because you've gone and developed your skills in the craft of photography, the craft of taking the photo, because the photo itself, regardless of how it's edited, regardless of what the visual aesthetic is good. Anyway, you get the point. If you're looking for a fast track of creating better images, then the cycle of shooting and reviewing is the biggest shortcut. And editing is the polish, the icing on the cake. So make sure the cake is good to start with. If you so choose to share some of your work with the world, then you're looking at editing and manipulating your images into a final form, because in my opinion, an image is never really done until it has been fully edited. And the editing process, it's fun. And I've spent thousands upon thousands of hours in Lightroom and other editing apps just toiling away and micro adjusting sliders and like dodging and burning and painting stuff and doing all sorts of like really fun creative stuff. And now with editing, there's just so many apps to choose from nowadays, and it's just crazy to recommend you one singular solution for your single use case. But I will try. I'll give you a recommendation, and you can see how you go with it. If you're looking for on-the-go mobile solutions, then apps that I can recommend that have great editing functionality are apps like Lightroom Mobile, Photoshop Express, Afterlight, Snapseed, and VSCO. If you are looking for more native solutions, even the native apps in Apple Photos and Google Photos are actually pretty damn good these days and will get you most of the way. If you have a bigger screen and you're looking for more of a desktop solution for editing, then apps that I can recommend are Lightroom and Lightroom Classic, Photoshop, Capture One, Affinity Photo, Luminar Neo, and GIMP if you want something for free. And honestly, you can't go wrong with any of these apps. Modern editing programs are all so good nowadays and all so powerful that you'll be able to edit well on just about any of them. For me personally, I use the Adobe suite of products, specifically Lightroom Mobile when I'm on the go and Lightroom Classic when I'm at a computer. And I do this because I use a lot of other Adobe products as well, like Photoshop, InDesign, and Illustrator. So I like that they're all part of the same family. Now, I actually have a full-on masterclass course on Adobe Lightroom, which you can find on my website if you're interested in the nuts and bolts of editing in Lightroom. And I cover every single thing you need to know about Lightroom, from organization, workflows, to creative edits, to developing your visual aesthetic, to exporting and delivering, and way, way more. Now, just so that I can ensure that this course is comprehensive though, I will be doing a very rough walkthrough on the workflow of editing in Adobe Lightroom Classic in tomorrow's lesson, so look forward to that. Now, when you're looking for an editing program, there are a few things to watch out for in my opinion. Remember how I said that the post-image taking process is split up into two parts? Well, firstly, when selecting an app, you want something that you'll be able to stick with for the long haul. If you are serious about photography, you'll have thousands and thousands of images, and you need a way to be able to see them all and then categorize them all into a structure that makes sense to you, and then to be able to preview and then navigate around that image quickly and efficiently. And this is the first requirement that I feel is important when assessing whether an image editing app is suitable for you. It is the question of, can this app organize my photos well? It's very basic, and thinking about whether or not it can or cannot categorize and organize all of your images in a way that you can understand quickly and recall for future reviewing is very, very important. Remember, there's a cycle, the shoot, and review cycle. Very, very important. Now, in my opinion, this becomes a lot harder if your entire editing workflow is going to be on mobile only. Now, there are quite a lot of people who shoot mobile only, or at least organize all of their photos on mobile. And most of the time, this is done by categorization and organization within Apple Photos and Google Photos, or the native photo storing app on your phone. Usually, that's fine. As long as you can categorize things in folders and create an organized structure for yourself, it's all good. Just keep in mind though that the sooner you get organized with your folders and structure, the less headache you'll have for yourself in the long run. Otherwise, your mobile images can get really, really messy really, really quickly, or be slow and cumbersome to sort in bulk, so be cognizant about that. From there, mobile users might only use the mobile editing apps purely for editing as well, and then export them into a folder on the phone itself or something like that. That's just an idea, but again, find something and a workflow that speaks to you and that works for you. On the computer side of things, if you have a desktop, then there are a bunch of different apps that you can use to organize your photos quickly and effectively. Now, of course, you can just use the native folder structure of Windows, Mac OS, or Linux, or what have you, to store your photos in folders, and many people do take this approach. Or you can put it into a specific photo previewing library app such as Adobe Bridge or Photo Mechanic. Now, this is a great approach, particularly if you shoot RAW, which again, I suggest that you do, as the native folder apps most of the time can't preview RAWs quickly, if at all. Something else that you can do that I do is have absolutely everything in Lightroom Classic catalogs and have Lightroom be both the way that you organize your photos and edit your photos. Totally up to you. There's no best way to do it. There is only a wrong way, which is to be not organized at all and not do anything. Now, the other side of the coin is the actual editing portion. So when looking for an editing app, again, there are some really core things to look out for when assessing which app is going to be the best for you. The first thing to consider is ease of use. When it comes to your first editing app, you will most likely be very daunted by all of the different sliders and labels and things to do. But after you try a few different apps, you'll see that they're all kind of similar. And then you'll be able to determine which ones resonate with you the most. Some experiences are more bare bones, like Lightroom, and others are a little bit more involved or a little bit more technical, like Capture One. And others try to do absolutely everything for you with AI, like Luminar Neo. Every program has its own quirks, and it's worth spending, a month trying each one in depth and then committing to one only when you really understand how all of them work and how efficient one is versus another in terms of your workflow. Another thing to assess is whether or not the tools do the things that you want to do in an editing app. If you continue to use more and more apps with different features and different approaches to the same issues, you will start to figure out which programs do the things you need to do in the best way. Because they all handle the basics well. Things like exposure and color are the foundation of a good editing app. But what about the rest of it? Well, for me, I love Lightroom and its masking features, which is why I stick to it from an editing perspective. Plus, I've been on it for a very, very long time, so it's hard to get off. But I also stick with it because I use Lightroom as a way to organize all of my photos as well. So I'm kind of locked in, unfortunately. However, there are some people who absolutely adore programs like Capture One because they shoot in studios and, they shoot tethered to a camera, which Capture One absolutely excels at. I've also heard people rave about the things that AI can do in Luminar Neo, which start to bridge the gap between what photography and photo manipulation are. And each app does a few things differently in certain places, and they're all worth spending time on to check out to see if you like. All right, today's assignment is to try out a bunch of software. I really want you to think long and hard about how you're going to be sorting and organizing your images. That's such a key thing here. Set yourself up for success as much as you can in this respect and as early as you can in this respect. Are you going to be mobile only? Are you going to only use desktop? Are you going to try a solution that spans both desktop and mobile? And think about how you want to organize things. Do you want to use folders and subfolders? Are you a tags kind of person? Are you a color-coded kind of person? From an organization perspective, try to come up with a solid plan of how you're going to be organizing your photos and where they're going to be living so that you can always come back to the same place to review it. Think about it and pick something, but if it's not working for you after a month, then, definitely try something else. While you're at it, pick at least one new editing app every single week and try it out for at least a week. And whether that is on mobile or on desktop, what you're trying to assess is whether or not the app does everything that you want it to do and is intuitive for you. Because what's intuitive for you might not be intuitive for the next person and vice versa. Try out a new app every single week with new images, with old images, and keep testing and pushing and seeing what you like. But for today's assignment, finish the day with at least one app downloaded and play around with it and get used to it. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.